A revocable trust goes by several different names. Some people will call it a revocable living trust. Some people will call it an inter vivos trust. Some people just call it a living trust. But essentially, it's an entity that you create now while you're alive, kind of like a business, and you transfer all of your assets into the trust. Either change the ownership of the asset to the trust, or for example, for life insurance or 401k assets, things of that nature, we can do what's called a transfer on death designation to the trust, so that the asset goes into the trust after you pass. A trust is made up of several different parties. One is the grantor. That's you. That's the one creating the trust. You're referred to as a grantor because you're granting property to the trust. The grantor retains all the powers over the trust, can change the trust at any time in the future, and has complete control. You can either have an individual trust, or if you're married, sometimes we can do a joint trust depending on how you want things to pan out with your estate plan. The other party of a trust is a trustee. This is the person that's in charge of running the trust. So initially that would be you. The grantor and the trustee would be the same person, because you're in control of your assets that are in the trust while you're alive. And then you designate what are called successor trustees to take over the trust later, after you may become incapacitated or pass away. When you set up a trust and you transfer all of your assets into the trust, you don't lose any powers or control over those assets. So you still can invest in whatever you want to, buy property, sell property, what have you. There's no additional tax requirements as far as filing your income taxes. We don't have to worry about debts, and you do not have to get a tax ID number for the trust. You just use your social security number. The purpose of obtaining a trust is, again, to create that entity, so that we have an entity owning all of your assets. And when you pass away, you don't own anything anymore. Everything is owned by the trust itself, so there's nothing for the probate court to get involved in. Another huge advantage of a trust is it's a private document, whereas a will has to be filed with the public record after you pass away. A trust never gets filed anywhere, and the only people that can see it after you pass away are the beneficiaries who are named in the trust. So the only people that see what you left are the people listed in the trust itself. One of the most major advantages of a trust is if you have minor children, you have children who may have financial issues like bankruptcy, have judgments against them, or tax liens. Maybe they're just financially irresponsible, have alcohol or drug problems. We can put everything into that trust, and it has so many protections for all of those categories, where as long as the funds remain in your trust after you pass, those funds are sheltered from all of those issues. So if you have a child that's going through a divorce, the funds can stay in the trust until that's resolved. If you have a child that has tax liens, they can leave the share in their trust rather than paying it out to them and it going to the IRS or what have you. Trust changes. A revocable living trust can be made at any time. We usually recommend that you review your trust at least once every 5 years to make sure all of your wishes are still consistent with when you created it. The biggest disadvantage of putting together a trust is getting everything titled into the trust properly and getting the beneficiary designations updated. Here at the Trust and Will Center, we help you through that process. A lot of other attorneys do not do that. They will charge extra for it or not do it at all. So you've created this wonderful trust entity, but then nothing ever gets put into it, and you pass away and we still have a probate mess. So getting the trust funded is key, and we guide you through that process for life. So if you open up a new account later, you buy a new car down the road, what have you, you can always call us and we'll help you figure out how to get it into the trust properly. If you have further questions about dealing with minors in particular, I highly suggest that you watch the video on testamentary trusts, not just for minors, but also for if you have concerns about your children inheriting money outright when you pass away. That's an excellent video that talks more about that.